When I was a freshman in high school, my friend invited me over to a baseball game. I went with him and enjoyed it, and I knew that he smoked weed. So when we got back, we had it planned that I was going to smoke weed for the very first time. And guess what? We hung out. He drove on his bike. We kind of went over, picked it up from the neighborhood plug, came back to the park in his neighborhood, and for the very first time, I smoked marijuana, and it felt like nothing else. It was crazy. I felt creative. I felt sporadic. I felt dopaminergic. I remember seeing like above me and below me started to get cloudy and kind of filled out. And I was giggling and laughing and everything. And the world had a beautiful lens on it. I remember the sun was shining in and I could see everything so vividly and so clearly. The yellow on the playground was shining, and I was like, wow, this park that I'm at in this neighborhood, I was watching the trees, and as they were flowing, it looked as if they were breathing, and I just felt so at bliss, and also so out of it at the same time, and I just thought, wow, this is fun. So this is what I've been missing out on my whole life, and eventually, over time, it led to more and more and more. Sophomore year, there was a school dance, and one of my friends, actually my ex's friend, who I was still cool with, had weed, and I said, can I have some? Gave me some. I was at a party in a music scene with some friends, having a great time. I was like, wow, this is so fun. And then senior year of high school came around, and I just broke up with a girl who was very strict in the right way. She was very Christian, and we don't smoke weed, we don't do this, we don't do this. And I was like, that was fine. But as soon as that relationship was over, I said, okay, now's the time. I'm gonna really start taking smoking weed seriously. And from that point, got my own pen, used to buy my own carts, and eventually, before I knew it, every single day I was smoking weed and getting high. I remember if I went one day without, it was mostly because I was so busy, and I would look at myself and be like, wow, I didn't smoke today. That's absolutely crazy. I would be working shifts at Taco Bell because I was in high school, and I would have an hour left in my shift and be so excited to go home and smoke because I was like, I've had such a long day. I can't wait to come back and relax and eat some food and enjoy myself. And guess what? I did exactly that. Right there in that window. My parents lived in this house. I smoked the weed and ate a shit ton of food, and that was normal. That was almost every single day, and I hid it from everybody. I remember one time we went to a family event with families, family friends and things like that. And I went into their bathroom, smoked the pen, blew it in the toilet, closed the seat, flushed it so that way the smoke wouldn't get out, no one would smell it. I just hoped my eyes wouldn't get red enough. But for over a year and a half now, I've been completely sober from alcohol, from weed, from anything else you can possibly think of. And this is what I wish to say to my old self, who was very, very, very addicted to weed. And if you're struggling with weed yourself, I want you to take this as a message towards you and incorporate this into your life, because it is one of the easiest ways to improve your life is by cutting weed out. Now, first of all, why did I get into weed? So initially it was just the fun thing to do. It was unknown, and at first it was scary. And I was like, this seems like a very scary thing to do. Like, drugs are threatening. It's not good. It's not something I want to associate with. That's how I grew up, right? But eventually I tried a vape, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then it literally sounds so dumb, but like, yes, all of the cool kids did it. That's literally how it felt. It felt like everyone else is doing it. I need to give this a shot. I'm missing out on something. It's peer pressure at its absolute finest. But it wasn't peer pressure in the way of, come on, dude, do it. Come on, dude, do it. It was internalized in myself, where I was like, everyone else is doing it. And they were very chill. Like, if they ever offered me some in the bathroom, I'd be like, I'm good. People would be like, cool, bro, you're good. All right. And that'd be it. But I knew that I had the power to, if I could just say yes at any moment and initially just smoke that weed, even if it was at school. I knew I wouldn't do that, but eventually it did lead to that. So how did it get so bad? Well, like I told you, it was the end of that breakup and the buildup, and over time I was like, you know what, this is a good thing to do. And I found out it was a fun thing to do hanging out with friends, because it allowed me to get more friends, because a lot of friends and people in my circle also smoked weed. So it was a good, fun thing to go out and do. And I'm a very artistic, creative person, and it really brought out that part of me. So that's what I really loved about it. And then eventually over time, I would just do random things if no one was able to hang out. I remember one time I literally smoked in my car, went to a Michael's or Home Goods, some home store place like that, And I actually ended up looking at the art. I remember there was some art of a painted cow. And I remember just looking at it and being like, wow, this is so beautiful. Like, in public, like, what the hell was I doing? I'd go to Barnes & Noble and buy a comic book and go to the coffee shop and read it there. Like, and then I was too high to drive, so I would just kind of sit there until I sobered up. And that's just how bad it was. It was the point where I was like, even on my own, I needed it because I wasn't happy with my own thoughts in my head. When I looked deeper, that's really what it was about. I wasn't happy with where I was at. I wasn't happy with everything around me. And it felt like over time, everything built around me, all my friends, all the relationships I built were just solely based on the weed. And I felt like if I were to escape that, then I wouldn't have all my friends. I wouldn't have all the enjoyment. I wouldn't have the creativity and the ideas and the innovations that I had, because I love having deep, intuitive conversations with people, especially when you're high, because then, you know, all the thoughts come to you. If you smoked weed, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the downsides were very apparent. The very first one, the easiest one, which I'm grateful for, was the anxiety of being caught. I was afraid of the law. I was afraid of my family, because it's not normal in my family to do any sort of drugs whatsoever, not even a drink. And being raised that way, I was also very scared of authority. Well, not scared in the way of if I did something wrong, then I would be scared of them, which I obviously knew I was doing something wrong. And I carried that guilt every single time I smoked weed. But eventually I became used to it. I became an addict where I was like, okay, I'm in school and I have this in my waistband, and if security stops me, like, what would I do? It's okay though. Sometimes the anxiety would get really bad, especially being in public. I remember one time a buddy of mine went to the zoo. We were smoking in the car, and then we got out, and then this lady was walking around on the phone and kind of looking at us every so often. And I wasn't very anxious, but he was, and he was like, dude, she's calling the cops on us. She's definitely calling the cops on us. I was like, relax, bro. Chill out. That's because weed makes you anxious. It makes you fear the worst because your creativity is going everywhere. Your ideas are sprawling everywhere. I told him, like, no, dude, relax. But it just shows the anxiety. Like, even myself, like, I'd be out in public and I'd be like, are my eyes red? Or, like, I remember one time I had just smoked. It was a Saturday or something. It, like, just hit it. Got insanely high. Like, I'm talking like a blinker or two. And then our family comes over as a surprise downstairs. And I'm like, oh, like, what am I gonna do? I just got blasted, and it hasn't even really kicked in yet. Like, I was coughing a little bit, and then it started to hit, but I'm like, this is gonna get worse before it gets better. And I said, Jake, come on downstairs. And I was like, oh, fuck. So I remember sitting at that table, and it felt like I was there for 3 hours. It might have been 45 minutes or an hour, but it felt like so much longer because I just sat there. I remember kept my head down, kind of looked at my phone, didn't really talk whatsoever. My excuse would always be, I'm tired. I don't feel good. That's all. And luckily, well, I don't know luckily, but I never got caught. It'd be so bad where I remember vividly, I was thinking about this the other night. I would wake up extra early in the morning, go drive to Dunkin' Donuts, get a 6-pack of donuts, come back here, smoke it on my backyard patio, smoke a joint, and then eat the donuts, and then go to school off the end of that high. How crazy is that? The thing is, I told myself I can quit at any time. That's the biggest problem. That's what makes it hard. But the downsides really were your memory really starts to fade and go away from you. And that really annoyed me because I would literally be in conversations with people, and then suddenly I would just be like, what was I going to say? Oh, wait, what was I going to say though? It's right there. I don't know. Maybe it'll come back to me. That would happen 25% of the conversations. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it'd be so common. Or one time I would like raise my hand in class as a senior, and then like they would call on me, and I would have that same thing where I would start an idea, but then my brain failed on me. And I was like, well, the weed doesn't affect you too bad. It's not as bad as nicotine. It's not as bad as alcohol. I used to tell myself that because you make excuses when you're an addict. And you're also just not there in the present moment. Like, you remember things, yes, but you don't remember things as vividly. And what also really annoyed me, or one of the downsides, was being around sober people when you're on weed. And I remember one time I was hanging out with some friends, and I walked past one of my girlfriends, and she was completely, sober, good person, like didn't touch any of that, never would, And she was like, oh, hi, Jake, and went to like high five me. And I was walking, and I walked past, I was like, hey, and I walked past her, and I took like 3 steps back and did a slow, like, I was out of it really bad. And then it was that she said something, and she said, oh, are you high? Like that. And that was that kind of look of like, she knew I smoked weed, but I was like, it's that judgment of, I know she's my friend. I know she's okay with me doing this, but it's also just like, oh, oh. And that made me feel horrible, where I was like, I don't like this feeling. I don't like, because it really singles you out. Because when I surrounded myself with other people that smoked weed and we smoked weed together, it's fine because you're all indulging in it. But when you're around people that don't normally do that, you look like an addict. You look crazy. When you zoom out, you realize this is a bad thing for me, because I would become dependent on it. Like I said, at work, I would literally like wait for the moment to go home and relax and unwind and smoke weed, because I just wasn't happy with my thoughts and the way I was. So what ultimately led me to quit and get over it? It was just one thing. It was the memories fading, where like I couldn't remember events or things that happened, or I could only remember them for a few days and they would kind of become a blur. When I'm talking, was that as well. But then also just the anxiety of I just don't want to deal with this anymore. I had a good plug and stuff, but I was like, it just feels sketchy. What if I get caught? What if I could go to jail, or at least get pressed charges or something? All these things, I was like, this is not doing it for me, and it's ruining my life. I realized, once I was able to open my eyes and realize this is not adding to my quality of life at all, even though I think it is. And I had to wake up and realize, even though I'm telling myself I can quit at any time, I tried. Like, I would have many little sessions where I'd be like, oh, I'm taking a tolerance break. But I can only do it for like a week or two, and then I'd be like, I gotta go back. And I realized deep down, I know that I can't quit. So I'm going to try to quit because of that. So my advice to my old self, and to you, if you're currently struggling with smoking weed, what is it worth? What is it truly worth to you? What are the negative parts of your life that could be easily changed if you stopped? And when I quit, I went cold turkey completely. I was like, I know that weed is not a chemically addictive drug, and I would use that excuse all the time. I'd be like, well, at least it's not nicotine, because nicotine is chemically addictive, but it's extremely emotionally and mentally addictive. So think about what aspects of your life would improve if you were to quit right now completely. What would change? Because for me, it was the memory, quality of life. I'd have better sleep, because I would often use it to go to sleep, but then without it, I couldn't sleep. That would improve. My relationships would improve. I feel like I would surround myself with better people as well. And all those things, I was like, this is so much more worth it. I'm just going to stop buying it and then just not have it around me, not even see too many people around. And eventually over time, I would still go out and I'd still be able to see people or go to parties, and they would have weed. And it was easy for me to be like, no, I'm good. Or like, oh, I'm not smoking right now. But eventually it turned into me taking that self-identity and telling people, oh, I don't smoke. I remember the first time I did that, I didn't really think much about it, but then I said it again a few times at different situations, and I'm like, oh wow, I don't smoke. I'm not a person that smokes weed. That's not a part of my identity anymore. And my life got better. My memories got better. I feel like I was experiencing life in 4K again, like that first time I felt, but it was just every day, every moment. I feel active. I feel present in the moment. No disassociating, no weird, eerie feelings. That was the greatest part, and that was the most worth it thing for me. So think about, what is the aspects of your life that are going to be better when you do quit. And I challenge you to stop. Not for a month. You probably quit for a month. Maybe you quit for 2 months before. Quit forever. Like today, you can stop. And I remember if I told myself this before, I'd probably be like, okay, well, I don't know about that. It's not the worst. No, tell yourself you're going to quit forever. Because these things are only going to continue to hold you back until you learn. Because I would try to quit and then be like, oh, well, it's okay if I do it moderately. And then it turned into not moderately. And I realized this is holding my life back to what it actually could be, living up to my true full potential. So I want you to quit right now. Hope this video is very useful to you. I'll leave a link in the description where you can book a call to see if we're a good fit to work together. To be a fitness coaching client, help you get in shape. The video is a little bit off topic of that, but it's all self-improvement. It's all about leveling up your life and growing. So if you want to do that, I'll leave a link in the description down there where you can book a call, we can chat. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.